From the Outer Banks Voice, I'm Sam Walker. As part of our continuing election 2018 coverage, we've teamed with the Currituck Chamber of Commerce for a series of conversations with the candidates running in the primaries in Currituck County this year. In this video, we'll talk with the gentlemen running for the Republican nomination for sheriff, Matt Beickert and Bob Douros. All right, Bob, if you'll give us an opening statement.
Good evening. My name is Bob Douros, and I am running for the office of sheriff here in Currituck County. I want to share a few things with you that I want to bring as sheriff if elected here in this particular campaign. But what's very, very important is we do have strong leadership. And as a leader, I want to ensure under my watch that they are properly prepared, properly trained to better serve you, the people of Currituck County. I have over 30 years of law enforcement experience, and I understand the importance of training. Locally, I've worked here in Blackwater for over 12 years, training law enforcement, training military, training civilians, in many different areas of expertise. I've traveled around the world, working as a subject matter expert to over 35 countries throughout the world, working with men and women under various circumstances, but I know what works. I want to bring my expertise in training, I want to bring my expertise in leadership here to Currituck County. I do know what works. I look at what things that are happening here within Currituck County, things within the office of sheriff, things that are affecting us outside of the office, specifically from surrounding areas, and I think we are ready for positive change here in Currituck County. I've got the expertise with my experience and my background to bring that positive change, to bring the positive updated training we need for our deputies and for really for our children in schools and just for the Currituck citizens itself. I thank you for this opportunity to share with you and talk with you and share my campaign. Thank you.
All right, Matt.
Good evening. My name is Matt Beickert. I am running for the office of sheriff. A little bit about myself. I've lived in Currituck almost my entire life. I graduated from Currituck County High School along with my wife. My two daughters are graduates from the Currituck County High School. In 1997, I became employed with the Currituck County Sheriff's Office as a deputy. In 2000, I was promoted to a detective. In 2003, I was fortunate to be promoted to the lieutenant's position over patrol and investigations. In 2010, I became the chief deputy, where I currently am now. During that time, I've become a certified instructor with the North Carolina Criminal Training and Justice Standards. I've achieved my advanced law enforcement certificate. I have attended the FBI National Academy, which is an academy for leadership and management. They look at all aspects of law enforcement, but from the role of a leader and a manager. Less than 1% of law enforcement gets the opportunity to go, so it was a huge blessing. One of the other things, as being an instructor, I've also achieved my criminal investigator certificate through the North Carolina Justice Academy, and I'm a rapid deployment and active shooter instructor that allows me, and I have been going into the schools and our churches and our businesses for years and teaching the faculty and staff and employees and our church congregants safety, God forbid, in an active shooter situation. During this time, I've had the opportunity to lead, to manage, to supervise nearly 100 employees and train nearly 100 employees. I think that is significant and will help me if I'm so blessed to be the sheriff of Currituck County.
Bob, we'll start with you. You're having whoever wins this race is going to replace a sheriff who has been on as one of the longest serving in Currituck's history, the first and only woman serving as a sheriff in North Carolina right now. What do you think is the biggest challenge to replacing someone with the legacy that she's had here in Currituck?
Well, Sheriff Johnson has definitely done a lot to prepare for this leadership change, I believe. I think some of the biggest challenges will be, in particular, if I am elected sheriff, to get, there are some issues, there's some things that people don't like to agree with in this particular change. I think change is really important that we do bring it in a positive way. Last thing I do want to do is erase the sportsman's paradise, what we have here in Currituck for so many years. And I've been here for 25 years. I've seen a lot of good here in Currituck County. But the hardest part, I think, the most challenging thing I will definitely have to accept is the issues that we're getting filtered into our county. We're having crime, we're having drugs, we're having things filter into our county from surrounding agencies. It's going to take a challenge, it's going to take work, it's going to take a lot of dedication. But I do believe if elected, deputies will be apt and up to what my change philosophy will be, because it is positive. And I think the biggest challenge really is going to be just to be able to hit it head on the way I want to, without any kind of, and there will be waves, there'll be some difficulties I'm sure at times, because change is challenging at times. But I do believe once they see my mindset and my goal and my vision for a better, more productive, safer Currituck County, I don't think it'll be too much of a challenge and things should flow smoothly, I'm hoping. But I'm looking forward to the challenge. I have lived a life of challenges, and I don't think it could be any more challenging than what I've done overseas. Particularly, I've been to Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan. I've been to really challenging areas of the world, working with leading men and women in a variety of different scenarios and training and leadership. But if I can get through those difficult parts of the world, I think the challenges we have here at Currituck should not be too difficult.
Matt?
All right, thank you. One of the things I see is to continue, is to grow, is to expand. We have to do more. You have to do more than your predecessor, not for your predecessor, but for your community, the people you're going to represent and the people that you're going to serve. I plan on doing things, working with the community closer than ever, to having a personal connection with our community, leaning on their experiences, trusting in them, and hopefully they'll trust in us. And we'll work together to prevent crime, predict it, and hopefully prevent it. Working with our youth, one of the things I think is going to be a challenge is to work with our youth like never before, like hasn't been done by anyone else. I do want to set a standard working with our youth to prevent problems, to see them, to work with our youth, that they trust the community, that they see the options that they have. I want to continue to work with other agencies. I want to continue to work with federal agencies. One of the things I see is when we have crime or drugs come into our community, it seems to be the favorite thing that they get charged with in court is probation. Where people meet the federal criteria, I want to take them federally and give them stricter punishment. Where people continue to commit the same crimes, I want to charge them habitually. That will help remove the problems from our community. But I do think, and I'll come back to the youth, I think that's going to be the challenge, to get everyone on board to have a successful program. But I'm committed to it, I'm dedicated to it. I have a lot of people who've contacted me who want to be a part of it, who want to help our youth, want to help make a difference in our community through our youth, through preventative measures, but still keeping a hard work ethic, still continuing to strive and to expand in what we're doing. And we can do more. There's more places we can go, we can work harder, we can help more people. When someone responds to your house, there's obviously a situation when a deputy responds to your house. And the first thing they have to do is I want to make sure that we have officers who care about the people they're coming to serve, and they do everything in their power to help them.
With Currituck's growth and how it's impacted everything here over the last 2 decades, over the last 4 decades, what do you see, Matt, I'm going to start with you. How do you see the department 4 years, 8 years, and beyond? Where does the department need to be in this future as compared to where it is right now?
Well, if the growth is anything like we expect it to be, one thing, there's leadership and there's management. A manager is going to need to stay on top of that, to stay ahead of it, that you don't want to get behind when you need employees. Now, one thing I'll say that I understand, every time there's a problem in the community or with the sheriff's office, more money or more employees is not always the answer, and rarely is. But if we have extensive growth, we're going to need to stay on top of that, because I think we do enjoy a peaceful community, and we want to keep it that way. We want to keep crime low. We want to stay ahead of things. We want to predict potential problems and have the officers, have the manpower to stay in the communities or in the business sectors to keep that low. I think people like seeing deputies in their neighborhood, in their businesses, at closing. So that's in the future, which I think we're all predicting a significant amount of growth, that we keep up with that. Not that we're going to ask for an extensive or large numbers of deputies, but we need to stay current and not fall behind.
Well, what Matt just brought up about that change, you've seen it over the 25 years that you've been here. How do you see that?
The change in specific?
Well, and how do you feel the department needs to evolve in the next 4 to 8 years?
I think it's very important we plan as leaders. A good leader is going to plan 5 to 7 years in advance. They're not going to wait one day at a time. Being retroactive, I will be a proactive leader. I have a plan to bring Currituck County 4, 5, 6, 7 years ahead, because the growth here is just inevitable. We have nothing we can do to stop it. The growth is here. I need to make sure I have proper manpower, proper training, proper leadership, all the tools that are necessary, not stuff we've used for the past 5 or 10 years, but being proactive in the approach where I want to be prepared for this growth. We're getting an overpopulation of citizens. And with that, unfortunately, crime is going to pick up. With this crime that is starting to pick up here in Currituck County, we have to make sure our deputies are prepared. We need to make sure that the citizens are getting the watch or the lookout for or the security and safety that they need as citizens here in Currituck County. Everybody sees the growth coming. There's nothing we can do about that specifically. It's good. Good growth can be good as long as we are properly prepared. But again, I'm not going to wait until things happen. I'm not going to wait one day at a time. I will properly plan 5, 6, 7 years ahead so we can be ready if something does happen and our plan of action falls into play.
Matt brought up funding and staffing, and that's always a touchy subject, especially for sheriffs, because you have to go to the commissioners to get that funding. What do you see as, is it funding for equipment or is it funding for staffing that's going to be a priority for you, or do you see that as something that's a priority? Which one do you think is a priority going into with the new sheriff?
Okay, again, I believe it's going to be both. Both are very important, funding for equipment and funding for staffing. Because of the growth that we're getting here in Currituck County, we cannot continue to have the same amount of deputies we have that can properly patrol the streets and give the citizens the safety they do need. So I will definitely have to get, and I've got a plan for bringing more deputies out to areas like Knott's Island or down to the OBX where they're so far away from any kind of help or backup if needed. I think both staffing and planning and equipment, make sure we have proper equipment and proper training. All this is all going to come together in my position if elected as sheriff. So again, I will definitely talk diligently with commissioners and make sure we can get the staffing, funding, equipment, everything we do need to have to better protect and better serve our country, our county.
I want to expand what you just said.
Yes.
You said you have a plan, and you don't have to get into specifics right now, but some general ideas that you can kind of present that you have planned.
Again, I'm not going to go specifically about what my plan may be, but again, I've got an idea how we can use more deputies, how we can get more deputies. It's going to be very cost effective for us in particular, and taxpayers. That's real big because it costs money to get more deputies, as we do know. But I think right now we are lacking in the deputy power we have out here in Currituck County. I hear complaints quite often, and I've been from the northern to the southern area. They're saying we need more deputies here, we need more deputies there. Especially with summer season coming up, with the new rule we have down at the beach. We're going to need more deputies down there to help with the parking problem, the passes, and all that. So I think it's very important that we do have more deputies, and my plan, again, without divulging my plan right now, I would like to make sure that we have ample help for everywhere in Currituck.
Matt, you've been in the department as long as you have, and you've seen the growth that the department has gone in budget and staff and equipment. Which of the ones? Is it more money for equipment, more money for staffing? What do you think is going to be a priority over the next 4 years?
Both are very important. You can have the equipment, but if you don't have the staff to implement those tools and use those tools, it's not going to be very effective. I think we need to have the latest technology, the latest tools, using the best practices, and not so much for us, but for the community, because they expect that and they deserve that. We are going to make sure that we have the proper staffing, that we stay on top of that, we stay ahead of that, so we don't lag behind, and we have to stay and set a standard with our training, with our technology. Now over at the beach, what we've been doing, a lot of people may not know, since the late 1990s, we have been putting extra staff on our beach in the summertime, so it doesn't pull away from the deputies who are over there. Currently, in the summertime, from Memorial Day to Labor Day, we keep 4 officers on our beach strand to enforce the ordinances. So the 4 officers that are over there do not have to be pulled away to work county beach ordinances, that they can answer calls for services. That's one of the ways that we use, instead of asking maybe for more full-time deputies, that we use a little bit of overtime and supplement what we have so that we aren't short-staffed somewhere. And you have to do that. You have to use what you have, and then when you think you're out, you have to come up with another plan or idea to even get more out of it. But you can't overwork or overstaff or understaff the job that has to be done. When someone is truly overtasked, everything will suffer. So we have to make sure they're not truly overtasked and have the proper equipment that they need to do their jobs for the community.
Let's go on a little bit more, expanding the Corolla situation, because now the commissioners have instituted the parking permit schedule. Is that going to be something that's going to cause more work? Matt just mentioned about the 4 deputies that have just worked in the beach already, just the beach itself, and then the other staff you have behind the dunes. How much more of a challenge is going to be? And with that said, you're going to see more and more people, less and less people. We're not sure what's going to happen in terms of traffic, but how do you feel that you can take what you want to bring into the office and make that a better experience not just for those who are going to be with the permits, but for your deputies as well, because of the amount of you're asking them to do.
Yeah, actually, there's an additional ordinance or several additional ordinances that we'll have to enforce. Now, those four out there, they're familiar with the ordinances. They will have to direct people in some, directions that they aren't comfortable with or they're not familiar with, because from, I guess, milepost 14 to 17, there's going to be a change. So those four deputies out there, I believe, will be able to handle it. They've handled the high traffic volume out there before. What I am concerned with is that anytime we have a new ordinance, is it enforceable? Are we going to have the manpower to do it, or are we going to be able to get the job done? Another thing that I'm concerned with is anytime we pass an ordinance, does it infringe on the rights and privileges of the people who live here in Currituck? And I'm very concerned about that. One thing that I will do if I'm elected sheriff is that we will report back to our commissioners, and they have assured me that if this doesn't work or isn't working, they'll make some changes. So we will report back to our commissioners, the people who are making these ordinances, and tell them, hey, this seems to be working, or this doesn't seem to be working. But I do believe those four over there can handle it. They are all the deputies that work our extra duty in the summertime are very proficient. They will be looking for parking passes with vehicles that are parked. They are already watching all these vehicles that are parked for other things, for safety. Not necessarily for safety violations, but make sure everyone is out there is safe and having a good time. So I don't think it's going to overwhelm them as much as probably people think, but it will be some extra work.
Bobby, looking at this from outside looking in, with something that's not been enforced in the past, and correct, it's not something they've had to deal with. What do you see coming from that perspective, not being in the department right now? What do you see how you would approach this?
From my previous law enforcement experience, I worked at the beach. I worked at the beach for many, many years. I understand the problems that can pertain at the beach. I disagree with Matt. I think there will be some issues that four men are not going to be able to, at times, handle. What happens, people are spending more time looking for parking passes versus really the big concerns are your reckless drivers, those down at the beach that are doing donuts and speeding and causing the real dangers that I think people are concerned with. You get an opportunity where, as a deputy, you see a person who doesn't have that parking pass, you're going to be confronted with them, are you going to issue them a ticket, are they going to pay for that ticket, are they going to move that car? And it doesn't take much to go from a parking ticket to a fight with a police officer, with a deputy. And I've seen more people get into a fight with a law enforcement officer by a regular parking ticket that takes 2 or 3 more deputies to handle that situation. And it can be quite stressful and quite cumbersome to the deputy there who are limited with their manpower to be able to handle the overload of thousands of cars that are coming down there, trying to make sure they have proper passes, and then make sure they're properly parked, and there are reckless drivers down there. That is our greatest concern. So I do believe 4 will not be enough, but the commissioners again have agreed to, if we need to change, to make those changes that could be more applicable for us. But I think it's going to be a challenge at the beginning. We'll work out the rough edges, I believe, with time. I think we're working in the right direction, but I think we need a little more time for this. But it's here, it's going to happen. I just hope for the best.
All right, the hot button issue right now, school safety. How do you feel like you can bring a different perspective, Bob, into how school safety, how resource officers are used, and how the sheriff's department as a whole reacts to incidents, whether it's just your simple confrontation between 2 students in a fight in the bathroom, to drug searches, to, God forbid, the worst case scenario. How do you feel like you could bring expertise in that maybe hasn't been in the department before to handle all those situations? And what do you see as what needs maybe be done differently?
Okay. I have an expertise in school safety specifically. When I was in my previous job, I spent 6 months working at my particular city, going to different schools, from high school to junior high to elementary school, giving them assessments, safety assessments, finding out what they could do better. And I found a lot of problems within these schools. It took me 6 months to go through my entire city with all the schools that I did have. But I gained a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience in finding out what we could do better to better protect our children. What I'm kind of disappointed with our current sheriff's office is they haven't done enough, in my opinion. I'm looking at the training, of a lack of training that has been necessary to give them the proper safety equipment, safety training that they might need. It seems to be in a retroactive type mindset with the present administration when they wait for another shooting like happened in Florida before they actually start making arrangements to come up with a task force. And that bothers me. I would be a proactive administrator, a proactive law enforcement officer, a proactive sheriff in particularly, to be prepared and be ready before it happens. I look at the training that we've got. I've got a list of training that we've had that Matt gave me personally for school training. Last time they had any kind of training here in Currituck County was 2015. That is not giving the deputies proper time. That's not giving the schools proper time to give that proper training assessment, the active threat training that I have in writing here that they did 3 years ago. Again, what's taking so long? Why are they waiting to be retroactive versus being able to be proactive? I think it's very important to have a plan, and it's very important we have our deputies up to date with the proper training, the proper tools, make sure our schools are properly fortified with metal detectors, whatever we deem necessary. I'm part of the task force. The school asked me to join abroad because of my wealth of information, wealth of experience. I've been all over the world with safety analysis, taking my men and women to areas that are very, very unsafe. If not for my proper safety analysis, it could cost us our lives. So I want to bring my expertise here to Currituck County. I want to make sure the schools have the proper equipment and they're properly trained. Students know what to do if things happen, and that we train our deputies properly with the proper equipment so we can prepare if it does happen.
Matt, school resource officers deal with a lot, and it's not just like we just talked about with those serious situations. They have to deal with sometimes the simplest discipline items that happen in school. It has evolved over years. How do you feel like you could evolve better to make the experience for the officers better, but also for the students, for the teachers, for the faculty, for the staff, and for parents, peace of mind?
Yep. For over a decade, we are not reactive. We've been going into the schools, and myself personally, teaching the faculty and staff about active shooters, conducting active shooter drills each year. And during this training, we assess the schools, where our weaknesses are, where our strengths are, and we build on that. And like I say, we've been doing that for over a decade. These last shootings have had nothing to do with our policies and our procedures and the things that we're doing. We constantly train. You cannot be become a law enforcement officer in North Carolina without taking rapid deployment and basic training, completing practical exercises, completing a college exam, and a state certification through that. Now, once you come to work at the Currituck Sheriff's Office, we have a combat course that we have to do twice a year, in the day and the night, and it's specifically designed for an encounter with an active shooter. So we do that every year. We have not been reactive, we're very proactive, and we continue to refine. I'm actually on that safety committee as well that the school has decided to have. This is something that is involving. I'm an active shooter instructor, so I've taught people at our college level, in our basic training, actually go into our churches, not just our schools. But our SROs, the ones we have, are very passionate, dedicated, and they're willing to risk their lives for these students, and they know that's an issue, and that's something that we cover, that we go over. We are prepared, but you always want to be more prepared. You always want to take the next step. You always want more training. That's why one of the things in our combat course is, hey, this could happen anytime, anywhere. It is set up, for a multiple officer response, but we know that's not going to happen. God forbid if it ever happens, it's going to be one officer there, and that officer is going to be ready, he's going to be dedicated, and it's going to put his life on the line, or her life on the line, for anybody there. But as our officers, they want to be SROs. The ones that we have as our school resource officers, they want to be there, and I'm going to continue to get them the training that they need to be the best officers they can tactically. They pre-plan for things. They do the assessments on these schools. They are assigned schools, and they do the assessments, and they report to the school, and they report to me where they have found places that need improvement.
Let's move on to another subject, which is being in tune with how to better work with those with physical impairments, mental challenges, juveniles as well, Matt.
Yeah.
How do you feel like you can bring something, a different direction in how your officers deal with them, and how to better alleviate situations that you run into with people like that?
Every year in our training, we do juvenile training, juvenile minority sensitivity training, so that we do interact appropriately with our youth, that we do treat them properly with respect. And I think that this program that I want to get started, if I become sheriff, with our youth, will cover all that with the youth, what they need to expect, what we need to expect. But we do have trainings because there are a lot of issues with our youth, and I think that's where I can make the difference, because I am dedicated and I want a program for our youth, and I want to reach out to them. I want to make sure that all of our officers, and they do know, that hey, there are people with special needs, and we're going to treat them accordingly. We're going to help them. And as I said earlier, when an officer from Currituck County arrives, the first thing you want to realize, hey, there's someone here who wants to help me. And we're dedicated to our students, to our schools, to the people in our community, and we do want to make a difference with our youth.
Talk a little bit more, expand on how officers and department deal with those who have hard of hearing, deaf, things like that. People that are on the autism spectrum, that you have to deal with a very unique situation when you have interaction between an officer and someone like that. How is your department, how do you feel like the department could evolve in how they deal with them?
Well, one of the things we're moving toward is crisis intervention training. We call mobile crisis if there's a situation that we feel, hey, we need some extra help, because our faculty and staff are trained to help at the schools. But when we get involved and we feel there's extra help, we'll call our mobile crisis team, and we're sending our officers to get some of this crisis intervention training so they can intercede, mitigate, make things better till a professional arrives, and do what they can. This is a movement that's happening across the state. It's not an idea of mine, but this crisis intervention training that we will get is a big thing. And right now we rely heavily on our mobile crisis if we have an issue with somebody and it's obvious they need more help than the deputy can provide them. We'll stay with them until that help gets there, and we'll stay with them and make sure and see it out, that it's just not a call that we respond to and we're done with, that we will continue to work with them. So we work very closely with mobile crisis.
Well, what do you think ideas you could bring into the department as a sheriff, first dealing with juveniles? What do you think could be changed there in terms of not just trying to intervene and keep them from getting in trouble when you're having to deal with them when they get in trouble? What do you think could be changed?
I understand juveniles very well. We have 3 daughters and raised them all here in Currituck County, so I know exactly the challenges we do have with juveniles. I was a youth instructor, youth teacher at my church for many, many years. I understand the youth and the problems that they do all encounter, and I understand the challenges they do go through. I would love to be able to work with the deputies as sheriff so they can be better informed, better recognized to the issues or the things that might encounter them on the street. I am a deaf sign interpreter for my city. So they would always call me if there's ever a deaf youth that we encounter. They always call me as the interpreter. So I can, again, teach my skills to deputies around here in Currituck County so they can recognize some of the basic things of a deaf mute. If you give somebody instructions and they're not responding, why? Are they don't understand you specifically because they are deaf? These are things I can bring to the deputies because I am an expert in that field as a subject matter expert. But again, I understand the youth. I understand the difficulties they do have, the challenges they have at home, the challenges they have at school. But better preparing our deputies with understanding and knowledge what to look for, I think is very, very, very important that they can be prepared when they do come across situations that they're not real familiar with, but the additional training we can give them makes them more prepared for when we do run across those situations.
Traffic enforcement in Currituck County is probably more unique than any other area of the state because you've got a 55-mile-an-hour road that turns into a 70-mile-an-hour interstate at times. The state is unable to get enough highway patrol members, enough troopers in this part of the state because of staffing issues, not so much funding issues, but staffing issues. Sheriff's Department has to pick up a lot of the load on traffic enforcement. Do you feel like that is a role that, the Sheriff's Department should have to take on more? If you come in, and how would you expand that or make it let's say a better experience or better for the department, but at the same time better for travelers through our county?
I think, again, it's very challenging for deputies when they roll up on a traffic scene, an accident, and they don't have maybe the ability or the knowledge or what to do, and they have to wait for the state police to come down. I would like to be able to give them better training. I think I've worked traffic for many years. I've worked thousands of accidents. I know how simple they can be. Just a simple accident exchange it might be, or maybe just an accident report that goes to the state itself. These are very, very simple. We could teach to our deputies. I would have no problems with getting them better trained so we could take that workload off state police, our state officials who have to come from across county to work a minor accident that we could take care of easily here within Currituck County, especially with all the traffic we get in the season of July, August, and summertime. I think it wouldn't take much to be able to teach and show our deputies how to fill out the paperwork. It's very, very easy to work. Like I said, I was a forensic investigator for 7 years. I've worked many fatalities. I can bring my expertise to the deputies here where we can make it more efficient and easier for them, thus taking off that load from our state boys.
How about traffic calming and things like that, not just on the main highways, on Currituck Highway, but in the neighborhoods as well? That's something that deputies seem to have had to take on because of that lack of enforcement ability, because of lack of staffing for the highway patrol. Do you feel like that those traffic calming, more speed enforcement, more traffic law enforcement, do you feel like that's something that you want to focus on?
I think it's important that we try to make it safe for the people in Currituck County. The reason why we have radar detectors out there are because there might be a specific area who's had a lot of high speed, maybe accidents, maybe fatalities. We want to make it as safe as we possibly can for the people of Currituck County. If traffic enforcement needs to be enhanced or brought up in certain areas of Currituck County because of these instances, because of possibly accidents, because of complaints, most definitely I would like to bring more, if possible, the ability to bring out enforcers, if you want to make them, just those who can do radar, those who can stop the violators. And again, it's all about safety. I want to try to keep it as safe as I can to the people of Currituck County. If we're allowing speeders to go by without stopping them and enforcing these laws, we're dereliction of duty, we're not doing the best we possibly can to bring them the best safety enforcement that I can do as sheriff.
Matt, we'll start with what Bob kind of expanded on a little bit more, was assisting the highway patrol in covering these minor crashes or helping with investigations. Do you feel like the department is at a point that you could take it to be able to do something like that?
Well, we help the highway patrol on a daily basis, taking accident reports, working traffic for speeding, other violations. When they are overwhelmed or don't have the manpower, we take those accidents, and every officer here knows how to fill out an accident report. Every officer here knows how to enforce speeding traffic, or speeding issues in traffic. In our promotional process, to go from a Deputy 1 to a Deputy 2, you have to complete radar training or intoxilizer training. So it's almost mandatory for them to get promoted. So every one of them knows how to do that and is proficient in that. Now, we help them all the time. Now, that is the Highway Patrol's primary responsibility, is traffic enforcement accidents. But when they're shorthanded, we help them out on a daily basis. We can enforce other laws, wildlife laws, but that's wildlife's primary function. But when they're short, do we help them out? Do we respond to calls of negligent hunting or trespassing? We sure do. But we can do that, and when I first got into law enforcement, the community really didn't like the deputies working traffic. They thought we had other responsibilities, which we do. Now I've seen a complete turn where the community is insisting that we work more traffic. Because of maybe not enough manpower from the Highway Patrol, but they do a fantastic job. So we are working more traffic than ever before, and our constituents are asking for that. And if I get elected as sheriff, I'm going to give that to them. Now, we're working very hard in our communities right now, working traffic, but saying that, we still have calls of service to respond to, domestics, break-ins, fights, other things that we have to go to that may take priority over traffic, but we are working it very diligently. Our staff is qualified and certified to work traffic, to investigate accidents. We're doing a very good job with that. But as our community is asking for it, if I'm elected, I will give that to them, because I believe that is what our community wants. They want more traffic enforcement from the sheriff's office, and I will give it to them.
Final question. Equipment and readiness, law enforcement leaning more towards what some would call a military approach, getting more military style weapons or military style vehicles, more of a military style look, and all law enforcement seems to have gone to that. In some areas, that's a perception. I'm not trying to make any judgments here. Do you feel like Currituck is in a position, one, to adopt more of those measures, or is it even necessary in Currituck because of the nature of how crime and violence happens in our county?
Well, I think we have enough of those measures in place. We've gotten from the law enforcement support services, we've gotten some military equipment. A lot of that is for high water rescue is why we got it. Some of those vehicles can travel in 3, 4, and 1 even 6 foot of water. And we've loaned that equipment to other counties when they've been flooded out. We've used them in Corolla when people needed to get out of their homes after torrential rains. So that was our primary purpose of it. A couple of those vehicles are armor plated. We had a situation a few years ago where someone was in a shed and shooting out of that shed. They were impaired. They did realize what they were doing. A vehicle like that would have been great to park on all sides of that shed, of that building, till that person sobered up, or we were able to remove them from that building to protect the neighborhood. We had to evacuate part of the neighborhood. We would never use it in any militaristic way. The sheriff's office, and Matt Beickert Sheriff's Office, the sheriff's office is your defense from anybody who would come and threaten you. We are here to protect the community, not take any rights away from them. We're here to strengthen those rights. We do have a lot of things that we've gotten for free from the military surplus, but in our mind, we're using it for water rescue, during a hurricane, during a bad storm, something that we can help the people with, not take anything from our citizens. But I think we've done a good job. We've got a lot of equipment, a lot of vehicles from there, boats for water rescue, anything you can think of that we could help our community, we've pretty much gotten it from.
Bob, your experience does come from academy at Blackwater and being able to utilize the training that you've had and the instructions that you've given. Do you feel like that Currituck is in a position that it needs to go more in that direction, or do you feel like you can balance that perception that could be brought if you're elected?
I've been very fortunate in my experience with working with Blackwater for over 12 years. I've worked with every military branch there is out there. I've trained and worked with them diligently here in America and overseas. And I've worked with your Bearcats, and I'm very, very familiar with all the armor vehicles that they have access to. And I think, I don't ever want to say no. I don't ever want to say never. If things ever do get to the point when we could utilize them to better protect our citizens, I have no problem with bringing them aboard. Right now, I'd love to be able to work with what we do have. I think the military is the military, and the police and deputies are definitely a different entity, but we could work together if needed. I have worked with, again, SWAT teams who have used fully armored vehicles, and I'm very, very apt to working and using them if necessary. So I have no problems with using them if it gets to that point. Again, I don't want to take away from the sportsman's paradise. I don't want to take away the image we do have here as the land of the wild goose. We've got an image here where I think we need to protect as much as we possibly can. I don't want us to be flashing around a whole lot of gear, equipment that military could use in an act of war, just to show off. The last thing I want to do is show off things that we might have. But again, I don't want to say no if it ever comes to the deed. If we do need things like that, I could easily get our deputies prepared to train for. I never want to say never. Again, they're great tools we could utilize and use if need be, but right now, I think we can balance it out.
All right, final statements. Matt, you go ahead first.
Okay. I'd like to thank you for having me here. Thank you for the opportunity, everybody that's listening. I want to let you know that if I'm elected sheriff, if I am so blessed, that I will work with the community to fight for that personal relationship, that personal connection. We will rely on the community to help us. We will use their expertise. We have so much in our community that people from all over the world live here. We want to use that expertise. We want them to rely on us. We're going to rely on them. We have highly trained officers, and we're going to set a standard in training. We're going to continue to train at the highest levels, have the best equipment for our community. We're going to work with our youth. We're going to do something that hasn't been done. I'm going to make a difference with our youth. We're going to prevent problems with our youth. We're going to educate them. We're going to give them opportunities. We're going to give enrichment in their lives and show them possibilities that they've never seen. When it comes to crime in Currituck, we're going to be we are a part of a federal task force right now with the U.S. Attorney's Office led by the FBI to fight violent crime and drugs in our community. We're going to continue to do that. These recidivists, these people who continue to offend, I'm not going to allow them to be charged in state court. Where it's applicable, we're going to charge them federally for stiffer penalties. Where they keep offending, we're going to charge them habitually. We're going to make this a safe place, a friendly place. We're going to be the most professional officers that you will see. You will hopefully see that we set a standard, and we want to be known for that. We want people to say, hey, if you're interested in community policing, how law enforcement should work with the community, interact with the community, look what Currituck's doing. And if I'm elected and given the chance, I will work every day as hard as I possibly can to ensure the safety of Currituck County. Thank you.
Bob?
Again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to just share with Matt and our audience our campaigns, what we want to bring to Currituck if elected sheriff. I think it's an awesome responsibility. I think it's a very, very important responsibility. I think you, as the voter, need to look at both candidates to see who has the most to offer that we can bring to Currituck County. I think it's important that a lot of promises are being brought out here today, but unfortunately some of those promises won't be kept. What I will promise you, if I am elected as your sheriff, I promise you to serve you the people with no colors attached. We're all red, white, and blue as Americans. I don't care what party you stand for. I don't care if it's Republican. I don't care if it's Democrat. I don't care if it's independent itself. I want to serve you equally as your sheriff. I will serve you with a transparent administration with nothing to hide. And I will assure you that I will lead by example with great integrity, accountability to you, the people, and also professionalism that many of you are asking for today. I think it's important. If you see the need for change, like I and so many people here in Currituck are asking for, not the same status quo that I believe we may get if things don't get that change. But if you see that need for change here in Currituck County, I ask for your support, I ask for your vote, I ask for you to vote for Bob Douros for Sheriff May 8th. Thank you for your time. God bless you, God bless America, and God bless Currituck County.
Thank you all very much.